straight into Ways to the Oneness with you fresh from all this goodness that you've been soaking in Europe, and then straight out of Menergy, which is very potent as well.
Yeah, it's going to be powerful. And I'm really looking forward to working with you again. It's been years since we've worked together, and I'm so excited about it.
I am too. We met, as I was recalling earlier, we met at ISTA. We've done a couple of ISTAs at least together back in 2012 in Melbourne, where we're going to be teaching.
Yes.
And actually both ISTAs were in Melbourne, as I recall.
Yeah.
And we also ran a workshop called The Voluptuous Heart.
Yes.
In Melbourne. Can't remember when that was, but anyway, it was a long time ago. And here we are meeting once again back in Melbourne, which is beautiful.
Right.
Because neither of us live in Melbourne officially anymore.
No, but it seems to be the home for this work. And
it does.
The men's retreats that I'll be teaching will be in Melbourne, and the initiation journey run with Aaron Kleinerman and myself was also done in Melbourne, not at the chapel, but at Vine and Branches. So there's a lot of synchronicity bringing us back to Melbourne.
And this will be the first event that I have held in Melbourne since 2020, since the world went upside down.
Yeah, right.
So, and in fact, this is kind of like, I wouldn't say a homecoming, but a return to my old ground where I've been fostering and working with people for over 10 years or more. So it feels very special. So it's very dear to my heart to be sharing the space with you and running this event together.
Yeah, me too. And, the title is Ways to the Oneness. And I'd love to hear you describe the oneness.
Well, in our conversation, as we were bringing this sort of manifesting this into from our fields of where we've both been working, and sort of discovering, how do we meet, how do we come together, and what do we bring, it strikes me that there is this polarity that we're always dancing with. There's the masculine and the feminine, there's spirit and matter, there's dark and light, there's the inner realms and the outer realms, there's movement and stillness, there's all of these qualities or states of being that essentially are yearning for or calling for non-separation, to come into oneness, to come into this resonance of being that is at our core. And so, yes, as we work or play or journey into the different polarities within ourselves, which are always there because that is life, there is this soul call back or back home to oneness. So that's my sense of where we're taking this in 2 short days. However, we can get a transmission and a flavor and a sense of coming home to ourselves, coming back to that place that's beyond polarity, that place that's beyond pushing or trying to design our lives or trying to maneuver ourselves in certain ways to appear a certain way or come from a certain place. So for me anyway, it's not actually working with any archetypes or trying to put on any energy beings, but actually dropping deeper into a soul call that's at our resonance, at our core. And that is this current that's alive in us at all times. So that's my take on this. And what about you, Jace?
When I started working with this, and there's a lot of archetypes that you can work with. The traditional Tantra from India, and you have all of these deities that you can work with. And there are stages of multiple aspects of self. And then you can go into the duality of the masculine and feminine, or like you shared with the light and the dark and stillness and movement and all of those things. But ultimately, it all comes from the one place. It comes from that one source which resonates within, that is the birthplace for all of these comparisons and separations, so that we can really experience life. But to really be able to experience it is bringing it back to the source of where it all comes from, which is this essence of love that resonates within all things, that oneness, that place of totality that is all things, and at the same no thing. It's almost a duality in that oneness itself, where it has all things, but it's also the void that has so much spaciousness to allow everything within it. And
Yes.
I love that journey from the multitude of self into less and less aspects, to really just coming back into that authentic essence of self. And from that place, then everything is rebirthed again. And it is reminding me of that toroidal shape of everything kind of spirals into the oneness before it then rebirths back out into all of the variations of life. When we can really tune into that sweet spot of ultimate essence, and that 0 point, that is the oneness, that is where all of our power resides, within all of us. And being able to come into a place of harmony with that allows us to exalt all of those different aspects from that oneness. So that's what I'm really excited about bringing to people.
And I totally resonate with everything you're speaking, and I feel you. I feel this, and I'm loving where this work is bringing us all. There seems to be an involvement in all of us from the early days of Tantra, I guess, in the tantric fields. We're all going through a journey and evolving. But what I'm loving the most of what I'm hearing in you is that these polarities and dichotomies, it's still an embodiment, right? It's not some ethereal out of body experience. It's actually experienced through the body. And I think this is an important point to make with our weekend. And that the heart, if we're going to experience it through the body, these big, broad aspects, it can be, the heart is the junction point of all of these polarities. This is the center point in our being, even though that what we're talking about is quite abstract. We can bring it back to simplicity in the way we transmit this and feel this and drop deeply into this.
It's this energetic that you and I share in a philosophy of how it all works. And for me, one of the most important things with this work is because it can be so etherical, and it can be so non-physical in the concepts that we speak about when we talk about energetics. And for me, the embodiment piece is just so critical, that like, what does this mean actually for me in a day-to-day? How is this going to change my world? And it's that little bias that shifts within when we are connected to that ultimate source of self, which is what, one of the ways to talk about the oneness is that source of self. And how does connecting more deeply to the essence of me then affect everything that I do from that point? And that's the beauty of working with it. It's almost like that pyramid, and you just, if you affect something at the very top, it filters down into all things. And that's the beauty of really, okay, we understand that there are layers of stories that can happen in our world that create our being and our reality. And at the same time, there is this point of magnificence that sits within us that is beyond all of the stories and beyond all of the concepts that we create of what is reality. And when we can tune into that and then shift that slightly, then that just filters down into all of the layers, and we find more joy, we find more ease, we find more pleasure. We are more able to deeply surrender into love because it's a more inherent frequency in us that then is just represented by all things that we see. And it's a lot to ask for in a weekend. It's a lot to ask for. And, you know, the weekend is a prelude really to the work that we're going to be doing next year together.
In February.
And
yes.
yeah, and I'm really looking forward to developing that in February and then also later in the year to keep more deeply integrating what we're doing and how we can work to support all beings to just be in more joy and ease. And that it's like a life's mission to help people feel more in ease in their being so that they can find the genius within them. And be in awe of the genius that just emanates through them when they can surrender to that point. And it's been a real journey for me over the last months being in Europe and really surrendering into this thing of, okay, when I am fully in my focus of surrendering to what is showing up and supporting myself in my expression and how I want to be in the world, how the synchronicities all of a sudden become prevalent. They're just everywhere. And joy and ease and love is just present everywhere. And that doesn't mean that it's always fun, and that it doesn't mean that there are no dramas and that all of a sudden I'm walking as a saint. That's not the story at all. But the capacity to move through just seems to flow with so much more ease than it does when I'm just spiraling in the circles.
Or pushing. What I notice in myself as I'm hearing you talk, I'm remembering my old patterns of trying to make something happen or pushing or having some kind of idea in my own mind, probably driven from my ego or my will, and going, okay, this is where I want to be. This is how I want it to look. This is, you know, I'm going to try and manifest this. And so I've got this agenda, which often I've been fallen off my perch so many times because, in fact, it's not in alignment with life as the mystery moving through me. And that's, I guess, my way of framing what I'm hearing you say. And yes, me also. I'm on this constant evolving to drop deeper into this soul call of life moving me. That is beyond the polarities, and that is what beyond what I think should happen, be driven like that. And so, in fact, we need to. It's this journey of going beyond the stories, going beyond the patterning and conditioning that is overlaid, that overrides our soul call, that pilot light. I call it a pilot light that's always there. It's always been a light. It never went out, no matter whatever happens to us, no matter what happened in the childhoods or you know, any lineage that's been brought through. Regardless of any of that history, there's a pilot light that is always there, wanting to ignite, wanting to be a flame in us. And so I think this weekend that we're holding can shine a light on all those parts of us that have been denied or shut down or pushed aside. Those parts that have been hidden have got room to come alive and be integrated and expressed beautifully. And it doesn't have to be cathartic or big, or, it can be a graceful, beautiful meeting of ourselves as one. There's that word again.
Yeah.
As one.
Yeah, and I think, for people that have been doing that inner work, there is that cathartic experience that we've witnessed, where we need to break down the walls to be able to come into the subtleties of what's going on. But once you've broken down those walls, then it really comes down to the nuances. It really comes down to the subtleties, and the gentle work is the profound work. Those pieces where we're really redefining small percentages that can be deeply integrated. And it's not like this was my life before the retreat and this is my life after the retreat. It's more like this piece just gives, I was going to say a filter, but really what it does is it removes a filter. One of the visualizations that I love is that life, source, love, whatever you want to call it, shines its light through us. And as we grow, we put these filters actually in front of our light, and we dim our own light, and we pigeonhole where the light can shine and where light may not shine. And as we do this work, we actually start to remove these filters, and our radiance can just be more resonant with our truth and more omnipresent in all things. And yeah, I'm really feeling this juice with you, and I'm very excited to be teaching this with you. Really.
Oh yes, me too. It's yeah, I can really feel that even though we're on separate sides of the world right now, and we have been for quite a while, we're still resonating and aligning, which is so beautiful. Yeah, we're working with the subtle. And as you say, it's not this crash and burn kind of experience. I think if people watching this are wondering what's going to go on in the workshop, actually we don't know yet, to be honest. However, I think we've got a fair idea that there's not going to be a lot of tips and tricks, right? Yes, there'll be practices, but we're moving into more subtle experiences. That yes, it's a solo journey. It's not about how to, there won't be massage techniques, for example, or these sorts of relating skills specifically, although you'll come out the other side probably with more of a sense of yourself in who you are and what you bring and what you attract and what you transmit to the world. Yeah. So it's subtle work, and not so many kind of techniques here. And I guess it would be helpful, but not necessary that you've done some work before. Would you agree, Jace? To be self-responsible in emotional or energetic intensity. Just dropping that in.
I think that's the main piece, that you're willing to take responsibility for your emotional body, and that there can be a whole range of ways that you might have developed that over the years, whether that's a yoga practice, maybe you've done Tantra, maybe you've done Reiki. There's a whole range. Maybe it's more self-development in the business world, where you've been focusing on the outside is a reflection of what is happening within me. And so the way that I change my outside world is by making my resonant compatible with what I want to see in the outside world. And so then it's really about, how do I understand where my limiting beliefs are preventing me from being my natural magnificence, my natural resonance? And so we'll be working more with, how do we truly become in tune with my authentic frequency so that that can then emanate into the world and be reflected back to me? And then the world around us starts to look more beautiful to us. And that doesn't mean that it needs to look a certain way, because everyone has a different frequency and everyone wants their world to look slightly different. And that is the invitation, that everyone is unique and the world that they see stays completely unique. The last thing we're trying to do is make everyone think the same by the end of the retreat, other than the fact that they are magnificent human beings and that they just have full permission to be that, with the awareness of the impact that that has in their surroundings. And that's where that real conscious awareness comes in, that everyone has permission to fully be themselves, but it's important to know what impact that has in your surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise we become very arrogant. We become very solo in our world, where I am me, but I don't resonate with the world around me. That's not what we're looking for. We're really looking for I am me and the world around me feels like home. That is where we want people to be by the end of the weekend.
Yes. And I think just to complete, it's that sense of once I'm in my center, once I'm dropped in and the mystery is moving through me, I actually become more attuned to everything around me. So there's a sense so that when we walk into a room, for example, we can feel the energetics and we can vibrate in and we can drop into the resonance that's there in the space. So I'm feeling you there. This is exciting. We could talk for a long time, but people won't have the room or the space to listen. So we'll keep the rest for the weekend. And I'm very excited to share this space with you. Kate is organizing, so any inquiries will go through Kate, but there'll be a link that's attached to this video. We've got basically 3 weeks to go, so we're nearly there.
It's going to come in fast. And I'm so looking forward to bringing everything that I've been experiencing in Europe over the last few months back to Australia, and really share this deep integration that's been happening in my body as an emanation for people to receive and really integrate for themselves, so that they're coming into their sovereign self.
Beautiful.
And I'm really happy to be doing it with you, Steph.
Feels like full circle. And we'll be gathering and in our old stomping ground, and it's going to be a beautiful deep dive. Can't wait.